My people, what up, though? We back with episode 2 of season 2, 2 and 2 of All Black Men Need Therapy. My name is Chief.
My name is Prentice Powell.
And here we go again. We're getting into it, but got a special surprise for you all. We got a new guest on the show.
We got a new guest, Chief.
I'm back.
Hey!
All right. So let's just address the elephant in the room. I told y'all I was done, but like my man Pookie said in New Jack, man, just be calling me, man. Just be calling me. So I came back, man. I just felt like it was necessary. I'm basically going to do it till somebody tell me to stop. In all seriousness, guys, I had every intention to stop, but I was doing some reflecting, which is why we have this podcast and why we talk through a lot of things. What I realized is, as much as, and we've said this numerous times, as much as this is an opportunity to get the word out, normalize therapy to everybody, it's also therapy for me, you know? So, and what I realized that this actually helps me become more well-rounded. So that said,
in simple terms,
I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving.
I'm back and I ain't going nowhere.
All right, so finally decided to dedicate an episode to these damn daddy issues I'm carrying. We all might have some in some way, shape, form, or fashion, but we finally decided to take some time and dedicate an episode to it so we can get some of this shit off my chest, because every episode, regardless of the topic, some way I reference my daddy issues in there. Some way, somehow I reference in it. And I know a little bit of your history, and I know you kind of share the same sentiment as I do in terms of having some daddy issues. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to be vulnerable, to put it on the table, let the people see that this shit is real, and figure out how we can heal from it.
Yeah.
Right,
and also, it's weird though, man, because did you realize you had daddy issues prior to the show?
So what's funny is when in Prentice Bell and I had a text chain going on, and he's like, "Hey Chief, when did you realize you had daddy issues?" And he's like, "Ha, now I'm gonna be serious." But I thought about it. I'm like, yo, that's actually a very valid question.
No. I said, when did you realize you didn't have a dad?
Yo.
That's what I actually said.
Okay, so the truth of the matter is that was actually, it's a valid question. As much as it was a joke, it's a valid question. Like, and I think for me, it was around, like, it was just never something I focused on as a child. But then I want to say like 11, 12 years old, I was, quick story. I was always the kid who like didn't like eating like the chicken wing, the chicken bone. I'm the kid now. I'm the guy now who still gets yelled at, like, take a bite of chicken, put it down, like you wasting chicken or whatever. So one day my mom was like, bring me your plate when you're done. So I'm like, damn, she about to bark at me, because she always barking at me for, not cleaning my plate. So I sat at the table for an extra like 15 minutes trying to make sure the chicken was clean. So I go in the room and I'm bringing her my plate. It's nice and empty. And the look on her face, fam, I'll never forget it. Like, her face dropped. She was like, "Oh, you ate it all?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I was going to eat what's left over." And I remember that gut shot right there. And I think I might've been like 12. I went and got a paper route. Was getting like $5.75 a week, but I was handing out and dropping off newspapers at houses to try to help bring in some money, because I at that point I realized it was like there was no man of the house. There was no one contributing to helping my moms out. You know what I'm saying? And at that point I realized, like, damn, like, because I had never really had that conversation with my mom. Like, where is my dad? Why isn't he around? You know what I'm saying? I remember this dude coming to the crib when I was like 5. This is all I remember. I remember some dude picking me up over his head and put me back on the ground. And that's the only recollection I have of my dad. That's it. Until I turned 31. And I will tell that story in a minute.
Well, we kind of jumped in, but we can keep rolling. How many, like, when you were, because you and I met when I was probably like 12 or 13. When you were like elementary school, how many of your friends had dads growing up?
Not very many. And the crazy part is, the one that I can think that had a dad around is Eric Amell.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't their biological dad.
Mm-hmm.
He was active in their lives, but he wasn't.
Right.
He was out of state or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it was Larry, Mr. Thomas.
Right.
Corey's dad was there. So, and it's crazy because when I looked up statistics, it said 33% of children live without their biological father.
You know what's crazy too is 1 in every 3 black men are incarcerated.
Right. So
you know what I'm saying? So it's like there's contributing factors to both statistics. You know what I mean? Like kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg.
Right.
You know.
Right.
The reason why I asked if you had other people around, because you and I spoke about this before, and Prentice, you probably experienced the same thing. I imagine. Like I didn't realize we was broke until like later in life. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody around me was broke.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I didn't realize that like we were kind of like in poverty. You know what I'm saying? Because everything around us looked the same. So there was no. Like you go, no matter how many neighborhoods you go over, it still looks the same, right?
Right.
Like it wasn't until I'll never forget this. I was in high school, and I'm gonna bring all this back in a second. But I was in high school and I went to Boston College football camp. Met these kids from this town in Connecticut that I never even heard of, that I can't even pronounce to this day. Anyway, long story short, I went to their house. They had this elaborate house, man. Like. Then we went to their buddy's house. They had like a Hummer in the driveway. This was back when Hummers cost like $100,000. Like it was like ridiculous. And I had so much fun. And then like we did a lot of crazy stuff. Then I remember, I'll never forget this. I walked back in my house. And I remember walking through the door and saying to myself, I can literally see my whole house from this doorway. Like everything that my house offered, I could see from that doorway.
Wow.
And that was when I realized like we don't really have no money. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't think about it before until I got to see how other people live. So that's why I asked if there were other fathers around, because you don't know what you don't know. Like if nobody has a dad, then you like, well, man, I guess we're not supposed to have dads. I'm saying like as a kid, maybe
that's why we never had that conversation. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
P, you ain't say nothing yet. What's your a little bit of background on it? I know your pops was relatively in your life, or kind of, sort of, almost a little bit.
So no. I'm listening, man. Like I told you earlier, I was thinking about it before we started recording. This is probably going to be one of the last times I publicly discuss it, because I feel good about that, because seeing how fresh and new occurrences still are, even this year in 2020, I'm glad I can publicly say that, because I've been holding on to all this shit, for a minute. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. For me, Pops popped up a handful of times. There's a couple of quotes that I remember him saying. There's 3 things you don't play with, which is a woman's emotions, people's time, and people's money. That's something my dad told me at 5 that I don't know why, but that stuck with me. I remember one visit where he taught me to put my top lip in the Sprite bottle, because that's how a man's supposed to drink. Don't put your lips over the bottle. That's another thing I remember. And I remember him taking me to Lake Merritt in Oakland. My mom had on she had me, it was the 80s, so I had one of those mesh 49er practice jersey looking things.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I want you to remember this. We went to Lake Merritt in Oakland. I don't know where the fuck he got some scissors from. He took some scissors out and he cut that jersey right up the middle to my neck and said, we from Oakland. We don't never wear no Niner stuff. He took me to the mall and he bought me my first Raiders jersey. And those are the things that those are only memories. Those are the main memories I have of my dad. Growing up, he wasn't active, and we can get into all the other stuff later about now. But we didn't have much, but my mother provided a happy life for me. You know what I mean? So regardless if we were living off of powdered milk and kicks for a couple of years, like you said, I didn't see other fathers, so I don't know anything different there, but I was happy in the house. You know what I mean? So although I didn't have a father, mom's worked for the police department. She was a cop since I was young. You know what I'm saying? So I had that whole experience. I was happy. So I didn't really realize anything until I found police reports of domestic abuse. I was 15 years old, and she had an old-ass police report. And when I saw that, that's when my first feelings got triggered towards my father in a negative way, because prior to that, it was all I knew. So I wasn't feeling like I was without, because my mother provided a happy lifestyle for me. But at 15, when I found out that he had put his hands on my mom, that's when everything started going.
Yeah, what's super crazy is I'm already like in my feelings right now. Like I'm low key like happy for you and angry for me at the same token. Like
why?
That Niners story was like a dope story for like, you know what I mean, father son moment. I don't have none of those, P. I don't have a positive father son story, fam.
And it's interesting, man, because this has been a conversation I had with my sister once, and something I've always wondered. My sister never met her father at all. Never met him. I met my father, and again, we can get to a little bit later in the conversation where it is now, where I stand with my father, which is absolutely no relationship whatsoever. But we always have this debate: is it better to know you have a father and never meet him, or to have a father, meet him, and know that he doesn't care due to his absence? You know what I mean? So when you hear that story, when you say it's dope to you to hear the story of the jersey, I'd much rather not have that moment. You get what I'm saying? Because I feel like in the handful of times you had me, you played this role with me, but didn't carry it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you did this in the moment. So I'd much rather not have those memories, because I do little shit like that in my sleep with my kids, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are little trivial things that you do. So you cut my jersey and told me never wear Niners gear. So now I walk around acting like Niners are the fucking plague, because that's my connection to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I hate the Niners, bro, because my dad cut my jersey. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm from Oakland, you know, but nah, it's because of my father. You know what I'm saying? But I hold on to that because it's the only things I have. And I realized growing up that the things I seen my dad do when I was with him, like hit on other women, I have these negative images of him. So even though that sounds dope to you, you don't know that was preceded by him going to the BART station, picking up a woman at the BART station, fucked her on his hardwood floor in the living room because he didn't have no furniture, and I was sleeping in the bedroom in there. You get what I'm saying? So that's the whole day. So when you hear that story and it's dope to you, I think of the whole day, or I think of just these random moments he gave me, and I feel like he's a sucker for giving me only a handful of memories.
Yeah, you bring up something that's interesting, and Chief and I had spoke about this. So that scenario between you and your sister came up when I was working at the high school, actually, with one of the kids. Really smart kid, got in trouble a lot, but not like malicious, like just needed guidance. He wrote this long poem about that exact thing. What he said was, he had a stepfather, and he didn't know his real father. He never had his real father's life, but his stepfather was very, very active. But his stepfather kept going to jail. And his email, or his poem, that's what it was, a poem. His poem was like, basically like, he called his stepfather's name, and he was like, you don't realize that you are actually worse than my father, because when you are here, it's beautiful. And then you leave me. Right? And then you come back, then you leave me. He's like, where at least my father is consistent. Like, he's just not a part of my life. And that's, for me, that's when, for me, I said to the social worker, I was like, yo, I'm not qualified to handle this right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, I could talk to you, man, but I'm not, you need to see somebody, because that he was like, and the poem was like eloquent. It was, he put it together very nicely. So it was something that he was able to process and then like articulate it like that. I'm like, man, you got a lot that you managing, and I want you to speak to somebody. And that was the first time where I thought that could be an issue, or that was an issue.
I give you another layer. So a lot of people don't know, I grew up in a Mexican household. So when I was 4 years old, my mother started dating a Mexican man who played a huge part in my life. He bought me my first turntables. He taught me how to play catch. I was with him every weekend. Since 4, his mother spoke to me only in Spanish at the household. I was the black kid integrated into a Mexican household. Raised me in my life to 17. 17 years old, I went away freshman year. Keep in mind, my dad hasn't been in my life. I went away freshman year, came back on winter break to walk into his home. Him and my mom didn't live together. Walked in his home. I saw a black woman in his bed. Who are you? Then I go into my bedroom in his house, and I see all of these kid items that don't belong to me. And I'm like, what is this? Keep in mind, I'm coming back from winter break. Long story short, I walked into his house and the woman he was cheating on my mom with was in the bed. And apparently he was moving them into his house. So I had to tell my mom after, 14 years of being in this relationship that he was cheating on. Once that devastated him, he took his house key and never stopped answering his phone and stopped answering the door to his house. This is a man who raised me since I was 4 years old. But because I had to tell what he did, I had to, tell my mom what he did, he just totally dipped on me. And I always felt even more disrespected because he's from Oakland as well. We're diehard Raider fans. So I grew up in the Coliseum. So I would always go to Raider game. We got season tickets our whole life. And the only time I would see him after 17 is if I happened to get tickets to a Raider game because I knew where they were sitting. And he dipped on me too. And I realized that produced a lot of my abandonment issues. My dad being gone, and then my dad's gone, and you raised me from 4 to 17, and then because I catch you cheating, you take away your key and stop answering phone calls, and all of a sudden I'm left without you too. So I think it's really, so I've had a lot of abandonment issues. I don't like women walking out on me in arguments. I don't like to walk out on people. I don't like to be left. So I love my kids and I love their presence. And I know I'm rambling right now, so I'll stop. But I know what you mean when you talk about that kid and him feeling like the stepfather, which is what I refer to him as, abandoned him, because then it does even more damage. You have somebody who created you and put you to the side, and then somebody who decides to try to cultivate you, and at some point also puts you to the side, and you start to feel like, what is it about me that a man cannot commit to cultivating me? What is it about me? So I know that was long-winded, bro, but it just triggered that thought.
Well, I have that exact same question because I'm the only child my father didn't raise.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying?
Look.
I sit back and it's like, well, what the fuck was it about me that had this? Like my brother and sister got to know him. They grew up with him. You know what I'm saying? And here I am, the black sheep, the lone wolf. You know what I'm saying? By itself. And then
too, right?
And the oldest at that. Yeah. So P.
Dang.
After my brother passed, my mom became very adamant about linking. She basically wanted to fill that void for me. So she was very adamant about reuniting me with my dad's side of the family. Yeah. So at 31, I met my brother and sister, and we have a great relationship. We talk and everything is cool. And then I met my dad. I'm at work. I've always said, like, I could walk by this man every day and never know what he looked like. You know what I'm saying? Until the day I met him. So the lady at the office calls me. I go downstairs. I see my mom and my uncle. And it's crazy. I look a lot like my uncle. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I got my back against the door and I'm letting them in. And then this dude turns the corner. And I swear to God, P, from like the nose up, it was like looking into my own eyes. It was the scariest shit ever. Like he turned that corner and I instantly knew, like, wow, that's my dad. Like from here up, we look, it's bugged out. Like it was like, I like jumped in my skin. It was so scary. And then, so that weekend he was here, he met my daughter and we, I made him dinner. We had a conversation and basically was like, why, what's good? Like, why weren't you there? And in so many words, he was like, I wasn't around because I told your mother not to have you. Straight up and down. Like, how am I supposed to, you know what I'm saying? How are we supposed to build after that? How can we connect after that? So needless to say, we had our dinner, he left and I haven't spoken to him since.
Now, I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but how old was he when he had you?
20.
So he was young. Peach is older than him?
Same age. He might be, I think he's a couple years older, maybe a year older.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's what we tend to do too. I think where we get jammed up, and I'll get into my dad's stuff. I think we get jammed up, man, because we try to rationalize it sometimes. And what happened, like and this could be a whole nother episode, but my daughter, she I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, we try to rationalize / justify their actions.
Oh,
right? God. Like we try to wrap our head around it, so we try to think logically. about why this happened. You know what I'm saying? And I used to have to help my daughter with this. I used to explain to her, I was like, you can't rationalize crazy, right? You can't rationalize like people that do things that are just so far left. Like that is not normal behavior. So you can't rationalize that behavior. You know what I'm saying? So like growing up, and I've talked about this probably more recently, but so when I was born, it's funny because in my interview I had to tell my whole life story, and I had brought this up in my interview, and I don't really talk about it a lot, but when I was born, my dad was a wild Calhoun, like just a wild boy, and he ended up going to prison when I was I don't think I was born yet, and he did like 4 years or something like that. Like it was so much like of my childhood that I just didn't know, you know what I'm saying? Like I just wasn't aware of. Like I found out like 6 years ago that my parents got married in prison. Like I had no idea. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like because I said one day, I'm like, well, I don't see no pictures and nothing from no weddings and nothing from y'all. And then I found out that they got married in prison. I remember going to see my dad in prison, you know what I'm saying? He came home when I was like 3 or 4, something like that. And I'm not exactly sure what it was, but he was gone. And I had an older cousin that I was really close with. He's 15 years older than me. You know what I'm saying? So growing up, it was all of us in the house. It was my grandmother owned a multifamily, and basically she had all her kids living in the multifamily. And my cousin was my aunt's son. So he and I was really close when I was young. We're still close to this day. But then my dad would come in and out. Like in and out, what I mean by that is like in and out of relationship with my mom. Like he was always around. Like my dad never like disappeared. You know what I'm saying? Like he was always around.
What's your pop's name, bro? Make sure we ain't brothers, man. Cause you telling the same. Now you talk about my dad, man.
Nah, yeah, my dad name is Bobby, man, aka Curtis, aka Womack, aka OG. He got a lot of AKAs.
Yeah,
man.
he's official, like a referee with a whistle.
Yeah,
for real,
man,
for real.
he's legit. But yeah, man, he's always been around. But like, you know, my father, like I'm gonna tell you a story, like a quick story that kind of sums my dad up. This just happened like 72 hours ago. I'm driving him home, or maybe 4 days ago. I'm driving him home, and the thing about my dad is he always had good jobs, but he never kept them. Never, ever, ever kept them for one reason or another. So as a result, he'll get by. Like he'll figure out ways to get by, and you know what I'm saying? And we driving the other day, and he's like, we talking about my brother, and I don't remember exactly what he was talking about. He was like, we got into like parenting. And he's like, look, man, he's like, I raised y'all on lawsuits. Okay. Like I was always getting a lawsuit. So that's how I raised y'all. So I provided for y'all because of my lawsuits. And I'm like, yeah, you did, Dad. You know, but that was his thing. Like even today, man, like my father's a mechanic by trade. He can do pretty much anything, but he move at his own pace. Like he not built to work for somebody, which causes him not to have money, right? Like that's just kind of what it is. But anyway, when I was growing up, he was always, him and my mom, they wouldn't get along, and it was the 80s, right? So there was abuse in my childhood, and then obviously it never happened. I shouldn't say obviously, but it never happened again. But they split for a long time, and you know what I'm saying. But he would always be around. Like it wasn't like I didn't know him. You know what I'm saying? Me and my brother, he would pick us up. Quite frankly, probably have us places where we shouldn't be, but we was always around. You know what I'm saying? He used to have us on the block with him. You know what I mean? But we was always there, and I think there's a lot of good traits I got from my dad. I was I asked you guys if you had fathers growing up, like around you. I was definitely the only kid in my neighborhood that had both parents. You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
Like the only one. And even when I moved in different parts of town, still the same scenario. I was the only one. I was like me and Marcus, the only one that had their parents still together. So anyway, people like gravitated to my dad. That's another thing I didn't realize till like right now, like how all my friends gravitate to my dad. And the more I think about it, a lot of my friends' dads aren't there anymore, whether they passed or whether they were never around, but they all gravitated to him. So he actually became like the neighborhood dad in a way. You know what I'm saying? That's whether it be dropping some type of OG knowledge, you know what I'm saying, which we probably shouldn't have been listening to, but you know what I mean? But like shit like that. So what I say is growing up, you talk about your dad dropping gems on you, right? The thing that my dad taught me, which is where last episode my purpose comes from, is to protect and provide. Like that's what he always did. Like he never did it conventionally in terms of providing. Quite frankly, more often than not, he was probably late in providing, but he always figured out how to do it. Whereas my mom was the consistent one. Like my mom, so I get my drive and my hard work from her, and I get my hustle from my dad. You know what I'm saying? He's always moving and shaking, trying to figure something out, making something happen. So that's kind of weird. So protect and provide is one thing that I got from my dad. The hustle I got from my dad, the relationships, and also his temper I probably got from him, or my temper I probably got from him. Like no matter what, just being there for your kids. Like that's one thing that I always got from him. Is like they didn't see eye to eye a lot. You know, like I say now, like my parents break up every 7 years, even to this day. Like they're together right now. They're on pace to break up in 2 or 3 more years, right? Like that's just the trajectory that they've been on my whole life. So it is what it is, but that's my childhood memories. My dad being in and out, but he never missed a game. You know what I'm saying? Like he was at all my games. I don't have those issues where it's like I have a hard time like trusting authority figures or shit like that because of my experience with my father. Like I don't have that. Now, my dad is very charismatic, good looking dude. So some of that shit I got, like early on dealing with all these women and all that stuff, like, yeah, that I definitely picked that up from him without question. But outside of that, man, I don't really have any damaging things.
So I like the way that flowed just now, because that was going to be my next question, and how, and you know, everybody has a little bit of our background now in terms of the background about our fathers, but the negative impacts it has on us is what really has us having this conversation right now. Because I'm listening to y'all and I'm like I'm just so I'm like getting angry, like no bullshit. I'm sitting here, I'm holding back tears, like I'm getting angry.
Well,
just
hold on.
The stories, man, and
there's more.
Oh, there's plenty more. You know what I'm saying? And it's fucked up because I don't have a fucking story to tell, fam. There's no good memories. There's nothing that I can say that kind of would be like put a smile on my face, fam.
Well, let me ask you this though. There's no good memories, and you hearing the story where, you know, I'm talking about cutting the jersey and you saying that's dope. Would you rather have just a handful of memories, good or bad, or the situation you're in now with no story?
I don't know, P. I really don't know, but I feel like there's so much pent up anger in me because he wasn't there. His absence has put like this, and again, that's why I dive so deep into my kids, because I don't want them to come remotely close to feeling how I feel, fam.
Let me ask you this though. Like, when does that stop?
So
when does what stop?
This feeling.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation at Black's thing the other day. We went to Black's thing, and Billy Seymour asked me if I've forgiven him, and I never really considered it. I never thought about it. I never looked at forgiveness in this situation. I just kind of been carrying this fucking burden for I don't know how long. I remember you posted a live or something a while ago. You were sitting on a rock and you was heavy. You was heavy in your feelings, P. Heavy, and you was crying and you was just angry. And I don't really remember what it was about, but I know it was about your dad. Like I just remember you saying, "You don't fucking do that. You don't do that." Like you was like,
yeah, it was crying. I was blatantly crying. But I wrote a poem called Little Man when I was 21 years old. Second poem I ever wrote. I did the poem in front of him one time at the Guild Theater in Sacramento, which is where he lives. I remember doing the poem. It's about him being absent. I remember doing the poem. He heard it. Long story short, man, what led to that was in February, my mom has always kept in contact with him. He's always been around, kind of, I'll hear from him and every once in a while see him, something like that. My mom keeps in contact, and she said that my dad had said that, you know, the reason why he's cool off me is because of that poem, and he didn't like the content of the poem.
Got some fucking nerve, huh?
This in January this year. I'm like, nigga, what? That's why you don't speak? That's why you don't check on your grade? Because you're mad about this fucking poem I wrote when I was 22 that you've heard? So I decided to call him in February. He wouldn't answer the phone. So I left him a voicemail like, hey, man, I heard you got a problem. After I left that voicemail, I just had to get things out. Long story short, he doesn't answer the phone. I get a sleuth of text message saying, I see you finally decided to become a man and tell me how you really feel. I'm like, wait, what? Then he goes to be talking about, yeah, I fucked your mama, and nigga, if you ever, all this shit, nigga, fuck you, get over it. This nigga told me to get over it. I ended up getting on the phone with him in February, and I'm cursing, I'm going at it, and then he hangs up on me right in the middle of me being on the phone with him, bud. And I'll never forget, Sarai was in the driver's seat, I was in the passenger seat of the car, and he hung up on me while I was trying to tell him how I felt, and he had already been disrespected on text messages. And I just screamed at the top of my lungs for like 3.5 minutes, bawling my ass off in the passenger seat because him hanging up on me in the middle of me finally just telling him how disappointed I am in him just represented everything he's ever done that I was making excuses for. You know, him having 3 other daughters. He's raising a 10-year-old right now. I got a 10-year-old daughter, you know what I mean, sister, you know, a year older than one of my kids and a year younger than the other. When he hung up on me, it represented how much he doesn't give a fuck. So now what I deal with, now what I'm struggling with now is knowing the character of my father. I used to make excuses before, but now he showed me who he is. And now I'm mad because you waited 30-something fucking years to finally tell me that you don't really fuck with me, and you never really did. This a while ago, I could have started dealing with this, but you wait. You know what I'm saying? You wait until I am a grown-ass man with gray hairs in my chin to finally just like verbatim be like, fuck you. I can handle a man saying fuck you, but I cannot handle a man saying fuck you fronting like he does fuck with you. You get what I'm saying? So now, skip the father thing. As a man, I can't fuck with you. As a man, how you just did that, I don't respect that. I can't honor that. And I'm not used to disrespect. Disrespect doesn't come my way often. So, you know, it's not something that I know how to just brush off. You know what I'm saying? So now, this man who gave birth to me, who did not raise me, is also disrespecting me, disrespecting my mother, telling me to get over it. And now I'm left with this now at 30-something years old. So when I was doing that poem in my head, it just made me think like, you just don't do that. And I don't want to give him the anger. I don't want him to get the frustration. So I'm trying to get rid of it. But the man in me is like, I don't fuck with men like that. You get what I'm saying? I don't fuck with men like that, bro. So I can't validate it because he's my father, and it makes it worse because he's my father. So now I'm on this. Some days I'll be like, fuck him. Some days I'm going to curse him out. Some days I do. On his birthday, I wrote him a very nasty text message. I hope he's ready. You know what I'm saying? So I'm struggling with the balance of where to put this nigga, which is what I call him now. You feel me? Like, where to put this nigga in the scope of my life. I don't want to hang on to the anger. I don't want to hang on to the frustration. But at the same time, I feel like this nigga got one over on me by getting at me like that and not raising me. And the way I'm wired and the way I'm built isn't wired to withstand that from anybody, let alone a man who is going to disrespect everything about me and created me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm struggling with that balance. You know what I'm saying? Like, where do I put this shit now? Like, and fuck you for making me deal with this shit in my 30s. Nigga, you could have told me this at 22 when you popped back up. You could have told me this at 17 when you called from prison, but come on, bro. Don't. So
does it make a difference though? Because I think you getting this information in your 30s, at least you've developed a sense of maturity to be able to deal with it. At 22, you might have went, you know what I mean? Who knows? You might have went searching for him.
And I'm aware of that. I'm very aware of that. It happened when it was supposed to. I absolutely know. It doesn't make it easier.
Right. Right.
You know, it's almost as if because I'm so self-aware now and because of the space I'm in is why God put that situation in February to happen. But because I'm so enlightened now, I really have to deal with the impact and the weight of what this means. And I also have to figure out the nuggets in it. So we got to figure out, I think sometimes like when we're hurting, not only do we have to deal with the pain, but in order to grow from it, we got to find some way to put the pain to the side and take the lessons and the jewels. So like Bell, you say it's to keep make sure your kids don't feel like you did. You know what I'm saying? Like Chief with you is to make sure they don't have any stories like that. For me, I don't even think he influences me like that much, to tell you the truth.
But I'll tell you like this, P, he does, right? And here's what I'll say to that. Positive or negatively, he's influencing you, right?
Yeah, I know. You know, it's hard. You don't want to give him no credit.
Yeah, and
you know?
But no, I know exactly what you mean. And the crazy shit is, yo.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, we can talk about this at some point, but my daughter's mother and I, we hadn't spoke up until last year, and that was the first time we spoke in 10 years. And I had to I did it like that because I couldn't give. There was something that happened in 2009 that got me so infuriated that the only options would have been to put it behind me and act like it never happened, or to do something so drastic that it could traumatically change the outcome of my life, my daughter's life, everybody's life. So I decided to put it away. Like I decided to just cut everything off, right? Because what I realized at that moment, and I'm not comparing, I'm just giving you a parallel from my perspective. What I realized in that moment was that anger, that venom that I had, like she was in control.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
She was in control of my emotions because that's how angry I was and that's how upset I was. And then again, it's like, how do you do something like that? Right. And now it's like, oh, you think you can do something like this to me? I'm going to show you why you can't ever.
Right.
And then that's where shit can go left really fast.
Take the road.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was like, if I remove this anger, I and I didn't forgive her for what she did, but I said, if I can just put this out of my mind, it'd be better for everybody. So that's what I did. So that's what I'm saying when you say it doesn't influence you. I think this, and I'm not in you guys' situations, but just listening to both of you, I think the balance and the struggle with both of you guys are like, how do you make this person, how do you hold this person responsible for the damage?
That part.
Right.
It's so all I had in that last conversation with him was my mouthpiece, and the world knows I got one.
Right.
So I had it fully loaded. You know what I'm saying? But the hang up, him being allowed to end the conversation, him being allowed to cut off communication, him being able to get that, to leave me with this inside, and I just needed him to hear it. You get what I'm saying? I needed him to hear it. So that control that, they still have over you is the struggle for me. I don't want him to get away with this. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you on Father's Day to actually feel like you deserve those happy Father's Days. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't. But that's all I have.
Well, how do we?
All I have is this text message. All I have is this anger.
So
you know what I'm saying? I don't want it.
How do we heal it though, bro? Like, have you forgiven him? Is it possible for you to forgive him?
Okay, perfect question. I forgave him as a teenager. Now I realize by seeing his character, I realized one, God absolutely did me a service by him not being in my life, because the behavior that he's shown, the mentality that he's still in now, how the fuck is that going to benefit me as a man? The things he's done in and out of prisons, the decisions he's made, the women I've seen him put his hands on, and the ones I have not, there's nothing about this man that would have benefited me. So I get it now. That's the flip side. I get it now. And so I forgave him, but now I feel like I forgive him on some days. You get what I'm saying? Like some days I forgive him, some days I'm just like, you're so much of a coward, of a sucker, the way you're wired. I can't forgive men like you because I don't even fuck with men like you in real life.
I got a different question to ask you. Have you forgiven yourself?
For what?
If you need clarity, I'll explain.
Please do.
Yeah, have you and I only asked this because I had a situation with my daughter a while ago. So I asked you if you forgave yourself. And essentially, in layman's terms, I'm asking you, have you forgiven yourself for allowing yourself to be played, allowing yourself to believe that all the things that you thought he wasn't, right?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
it's like this is the only thing I can equate it to. Like for me, I don't cry a lot. Like I'm not that emotional of a person. But when I do cry, my first reaction or my first emotion is I'm mad at myself for crying. Like, it's like, why the fuck you crying? Stop crying. So that makes me cry more. Right?
Yeah. It's like, give them this energy. Don't.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So like when you reflect as a grown man now, and you think about all, potentially, I'm not saying this is the case, but potentially you think about all the ways or times or signs that you should have picked up on to reflect this man's character that you now know. Have you forgiven yourself for that? Because you keep saying, like, why didn't you tell me in my 20s? Why didn't you do that? And again, it's just a question, P. Have you forgiven yourself for not picking up the signs, for not drawing a line in the sand earlier and allowing yourself to just be, you know what? I was hopeful, right? And it's okay that I was hopeful that this would turn out the way it was. I dreamed it would turn out. Like, I don't know if for either one of you, if there's any animosity around that. That's why I asked, have you forgiven yourself for allowing yourself to get this far downstream before coming to this conclusion, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, I'm his son, man. That's my dad. You know what I'm saying? So I'm never gonna beat myself up for wanting more than I had with him. I'm not gonna beat myself up for any love I did or do have for him.
Right.
It's natural to want your daddy. You know what I'm saying? So
100%.
the glimpses that I saw growing up, I took them and did what I made the excuses to validate his behavior or his lack of absence and painted this picture of who he must be to not have, played his part. But yeah, it was never a forgiveness thing for me. I never had to forgive myself. I wasn't the one running gang. You know what I'm saying? Like I was being a son.
But you were believing it though.
Yeah. But I mean, I was believing it for myself though.
Right. And I'm not saying you're wrong for believing it. And again, I'm not saying that this was your issue. I'm just asking, like, if there was ever a time where you're like, fuck, I should have known better.
No.
Okay.
Never.
All right.
As a son, I felt like any part of my father I could hold on to, I would, because that's how I identify with my dad growing up. It's just the memories or stories I heard, whether they're true or not, I found myself piecing those together. So I had some type of connection. So during that time of believing whatever or making excuses, I was trying to put him in a place that, gave me some more wholeness, I think. You know what I mean? It made me feel a little bit more complete.
In listening to you, you just said something, and it's like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck what the scenario is. That's what you're supposed to do. So I'm sitting here and I'm just listening, and I'm fucking like, yo, dog, I'm fucking burning right now. Like my shit feels like it's on fire underneath my skin, B. And it's just anger. Like I carry this anger that I just can't. It's like it's subconscious, but it always comes out, and I don't know how to shake this shit, P. Like, what the fuck was it? Like, why not? Why not me? And I think that I carry that guilt. Like, why not me, fam?
It's ugly. It's ugly. It's ugly how that why not me or that why me trickles into other aspects of your life as a grown-up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really feel that those two men dipping on me before the age of 17, both of them, really created this low self-esteem. And it's really why I place so much value in women's view of me, their perception of me. Is because women were the only other people I can attach myself to and attempt to stay with, right? So because those disconnections had occurred within my father, I need some type of a validation and attachment where I feel like somebody feels I'm worth sticking around for. So even in arguments where I should have left in relationships and I know shit ain't right, I may sacrifice some of my own self-worth or self-esteem or self-being because I have this overall desire to feel wanted. You know what I'm saying? So that anger, it shows up there when I'm like, fuck. You know what I'm saying? My dad got me over here fucking with this woman for no fucking reason. You get what I'm saying? So that anger,
trying to fill a void that he left.
Yeah, so that anger, it bounces in pockets, but I don't know how we do it because we're excellent fathers. But guess what? That anger is still right here.
That's the fucking problem.
It don't go.
That is my issue right there. Like, I pour so much into my kids and I'm so heavily involved and do what I do, but I'm so fucking angry and I don't know how to shake this shit. So how do we tell for the viewers dealing with the same bullshit we dealing with? Like, what do we say?
Well,
what do we suggest in terms of helping them heal from this shit? Because I don't know. Like, after this, I'm gonna be angry for a little while tonight, just sitting here fucking mad.
Yeah, well, my question to you, Chief, is how often do you even talk about this to this extent? And
I don't.
You don't. I know. I knew the answer, right? That's where, when it shows up, it's been pent up. So now you got a platform, and now it's going to burn because now it's coming out. You know what I'm saying? So to answer your question, the only thing I can say, which is, again, why we started this podcast, is you need to speak to somebody, like, more consistently. Because, again, prior to this podcast, I personally, like, again, I'm the biggest person around you talking shit about your dad, right? Not being around. But it was always a joke for me until this podcast, when, again, like, we recognize that this shit keeps coming up. Like, this dude, every episode, we could be talking about something. We can talk about college, right? And his dad it rears his face, right? Like the dad issue. So I personally, me knowing you, I think you need a platform to discuss it, to get it off your chest. Because one thing we know, right? And this goes for all of us. We are not going to do anything from our father's past that will negatively impact our children. Period.
No, that's not necessarily true.
Okay, go ahead.
I know for me, there have been certain, I think one of the worst things about having an absent father is seeing those negative traits you remember that are a part of the handful of memories rear their head in your life. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that's a natural part of growing as a man. That's a natural part of fatherhood. But when it resembles, like, even now after February, having that final conversation with my dad, when things that I do, things that I say, certain energy that I may put out reminds me of my father, it's even harder to deal with for me because I feel like I know where I get that from, even though I wasn't around that man that much. And then it does rear its head. And then I'm like, fuck, am I more like I'm trying so hard not to be like my dad, but then here this behavior goes that may be telling me I'm I have a line in a poem that, I talk bad about my dad in my poems only to grow up and realize I'm a lot more like him than I care to admit. You know what I'm saying? So you spend your whole life, I ain't like this nigga, while them traits is the most dominant ones. You know what I mean? So
and the irony for me is I wouldn't even know if I carry those traits. I go to the doctor, they'd be like, yeah, you got this thing on that side of the family. I'm like, I couldn't tell you, player. Like, I don't know. When they ask about, your dad's side of the family, do they carry this? I'm like, yo, I have no clue, fam. Like, I can't tell you nothing about them.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up, Pete. So I think, and maybe I was being too overarching, like with that comment. I think because you're right. Because regardless of how well we know them, their DNA is in us.
It's here.
Period. Right. So yes, those things are going to rear their heads. I think one thing to consider though is those negative traits, right, were who they were. Right. In some cases, they didn't change, and they're still like that. In your case, it sounds like your dad's still the same way he was back years ago, right?
I wouldn't know,
But in terms of your relationship, right? Like,
Yeah.
nothing's really changed there, and that's the only point I'm trying to make. Whereas you can recognize those things that come up because you're self-aware, right? Because you do work on yourself. You recognize, okay, this is not where I want to be. This is not who I want to be. So you can then course correct if it's that drastic. You see what I'm saying? But it's in you. You're right. It is in you. But I guess what I'm saying is, I would like to believe that we have the wherewithal to not live in that place for any long periods of time that would negatively impact our children. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Take a minute and process the question before you give me the answer.
All right.
Is there any chance of reconciliation?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why, man. I just recently got to the point, like I said, my anger varies, but I recently got to the point where what he taught me, I'm thinking about this shit is all clicking now. I think what I learned most from that last conversation and just what's transpired since is that people are who they are.
Yeah.
Because they're your father, your brother, your uncle, your cousin, it does not make them at their core any different than who they are. And I think it taught me a lesson that sometimes we can place too much respect on a title. So because this man birthed me, I automatically have always given him a level of respect. Despite how much disrespect he's shown me, I've always given him a level because I know that without him, I wouldn't be here. And that's just fact. That goes hand in hand with my mother, regardless of the fact that she's the one who raised me. But the ability to, I don't operate with men like that in general. You get what I'm saying? So y'all are part of my circle. Y'all don't remind me of I don't operate like men with him in general. So I damn sure ain't gonna try to reconcile with the man who is the last person who should have treated me and spoke to me the way he did and does. You know what I'm saying? So I've accepted the fact that he is who he is. So now it's more so a matter of dealing with my anger and dealing with the emotions and feelings that I have inside so that I can eventually move to a healthier space. But reconciliation is out.
So what if part of the healing was reconciling? Like what if, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, like in order for you to get to the place where it doesn't have the impact on your life that it still has even in this conversation, what if that part of that process was to forgive them or have some type of reconciling conversation with the two of you or something to that effect?
Man, I'm about to say something that is probably the really shit I've said publicly, man. Ooh, and I'm kind of nervous saying this shit. Since that conversation, since that conversation, man, I feel like the only moment I'm going to feel real closure is when he passes away. Is when he's no longer here to reap the benefits of everything he has now while doing me and countless other people dirty. For us to have the same name that I feel he doesn't deserve by his behavior. I'm going to let him live his life out. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to let him do his thing, but I'm not going to have closure until he ain't here no more. And that sounds however the fuck it sounds. But I think because of my character and how I'm wired when it comes to disrespect and anger and emotion and all that too, if reconciliation is what was needed in order for me truly to be at the healthiest space possible, I'm not sure I'm ever really going to be able to get to that space because of how he made me feel. And I feel like it's weird, man. It's self-destructive. A part of it is I feel like that anger and animosity that I do still have is necessary in order to push a part of who I'm becoming, which sounds so fucking weird and toxic. I told him on the phone, man, I was like, bro, when you die, if I show up to your funeral, it's only to spit on your grave, homie. That's it. That's the only way I'm showing up to your funeral. And I mean it, bro. That's the scary part. I mean it. I wonder now, the day I get that call notification when he dies, what am I really going to do when that happens? Because right now, I mean it. And that is the most disrespectful idea I can conceptualize at this point in my life. Therefore, that's why I'm still holding on to it, because I still feel like he got one over on me by that last conversation and everything he did. So my anger and animosity is so deep. I don't know if I ever can really shake it, bro. And I feel like him dying is the only real closure I'm gonna get.
And just listening to you, P, what it sounds like, man, is you want him to pay.
Yeah.
You want him to pay for everything that he did.
It wasn't that until the conversation. It wasn't until I'm looking at the text messages. I had to, just to really go back in that space. I'm looking at them right now, and this shit that I'm not even gonna read. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not even gonna do that to him. You know what I'm saying? He is who he is. It's not for everything he did. It's because I know his character now. And I don't like men like that being able to scathe through life while men like us have to deal with the shit that they gave us, while we do the total opposite of what they did to us. That I have a problem with that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a huge part of me that wants him to pay, but I know that's not necessarily how I want to live, man.
But that's how you're living.
Yeah.
Like I get, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Like, I get it in theory, right? In theory, that's not who you want to be, but that's who you are. And I guess what I'm saying is, as long as you're that, yeah, nothing's gonna change, right? And I'm not saying it has to. I'm listening to what you're saying, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't.
The only part that would need to change for me is the emotion that probably some of this anger and aggression, however that hinders my development. That's the only part I really give a damn about changing. You know what I'm saying? Not the relationship, not how he feels, but just if and I know people listening are probably definitely gonna be writing like, Prentice got some. You'd be surprised how much I've grown and how far I've came from how I felt 3 months.
Even that, bro, they also do. People that's listening, right? These aren't exclusive conversations for the three of us in the country, right? Like, we're talking about this because these are real topics that come up, and both of you, Chief definitely is a case in point where it's not talked about enough for him to even talk about it and not get infuriated.
Did you, but like, you see how I'm interjecting for 10 seconds and just staying quiet. So like, I can't even, like, there's nothing for me. Like, it's just, all it does is create it's just an anger that builds up in me that I just keep compartmentalized, because it can't go to, I can't put that anywhere else. I'm not about to invest it in women. I don't want my kids to see a sign of it. But you know what I'm saying? But it's like, so I just compartmentalize it. And then when we have these conversations, or when something comes up, or like, I have this memory in my head, and I've never told you this, but at his wedding, three of us, me, him, my man, Oss, had a big hug at the wedding, and his dad came and like hugged the three of us. And that shit was like, I can't even describe to you how it felt for me. Like, the three brothers pretty much hugging.
It's actually the picture that's on.
It's the picture that's in the logo.
Actually all of us hugging.
And it was crazy to me, because in that moment, like, I'm hugging my dudes, you know, it's love filling the place at this wedding. But we caught an emotional moment, all of us fucking crying, and then Pop came in and kind of like, like, without saying, like, y'all niggas gonna be okay. Like, this is okay. And that shit spoke volumes to me. I don't even know, you know, but I like, after that moment, I like stepped off, and that's when I had a shot. That's why I took a shot. Like, I don't even drink. You know what I'm saying? I took a shot, like, yo, this, like, I was in my feels heavy.
Still crying.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
At the bar. Yeah.
Like, I was in my shit heavy, and it's like, yo, what I would give for a moment like that.
Oh shit, man. We gotta have certain. I think even in the midst of, like, Bell, with your story, man, with your father is wired a certain way as a person to serve as a community father. He's wired as a person to be able to give that moment for you, though, Chief. Yeah. My father is not, and your father, even though I don't know him, but he clearly didn't do shit. So our fathers aren't wired to provide that type of energy, that type of service, that type of of love despite their character and flaws. So I think part of the healing, I don't have no advice for nobody on how to heal and deal with it on this. I don't have a single bit of advice other than try to find some avenue to get it out. But what I've learned is it don't matter how many poems I write. It don't matter how many times I come in and kiss these kids on the other side of this door. It don't matter how many times I meditate. It don't leave.
And I think that right there is the dopest part of this podcast. Like being able to talk about it and honestly be like, yo, I don't have I'm not a therapist. I don't have the answer for you, but I know this is something that could help.
Period. This is therapy. This is what we mean by all Black men need therapy. This right here. It doesn't mean there's a resolve, but it's a platform for us to just try to make sense of this shit.
Right.
And that's right. I just want to make sense of it, man. So now that I know he's giving me all this disrespect, what I'm trying to do now is just make sense of it, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but the thing too, I think, Pete, what also causes strain is sometimes, like I was telling my daughter, you can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you just can't. Like it's not rational behavior, right? So you can't make sense of it. So that's the other challenge. And it's like you beat yourself up, you know what I'm saying, about like, why did he do this? Why is this like this? Why, you know what I mean? But you look at it because you can't understand it because that's something that you would never, ever, ever do.
And that was
right.
That's so crazy that because I'm as you're talking about, you can't make sense of it. My only thing going in my head is because the only question you have is why. And that's the question you can continually ask when you get the first answer to why. But why? But why? But why? And it doesn't allow you the opportunity to make sense of it because you still want to know why.
And then you're trusting that, even with the why, you're trusting that your father is going to give you an honest fucking answer. Look, for me to, in hindsight, I'm thinking about that conversation in February now. In hindsight, what the fuck did I expect?
Right.
I'm just now thinking about this right now. But like, what did I really expect though?
That's what
it's
I'm
just
talking
now
about.
hitting me right now. Like, he is who he is. So when I approach him, what really was he gonna give me? So 30 years of enlightenment. What is your?
He's gonna give you everything that he's been giving you. You know what I'm saying? And whatever that is, that's what he's gonna give you.
So he did via text and verbally. He did.
I think for me though, so in that situation at 31, when I'm like, yo, you know, let's have a man to man. Why weren't you here? Had he explained to me and be like, son, you know, I'm sorry for all those years. I didn't get that. I told your mom not to have you. That's why I wasn't around.
So did you want an apology or did you want an explanation?
He doesn't even. I wanted a sincere. I wanted
something.
I wanted him to be remorseful. I wanted him to be like, yo, like I got this. I mean, I was at that time. I'm, you know what I mean, got my first child. I'm doing well. No arrest record. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want my dad to be proud of me and say, yo, I'm sorry I wasn't there, but I'm here now. I mean, it may not have made a difference in terms of our relationship, but at least I know there was some sort of care.
Because he did,
how you would be in that situation.
What did you take from his response?
More venom?
It was essentially when he said that to me, I heard everything your father said to you.
Okay. And okay, so
it was equivalent to what the situation you're going through with very few words, with a whole bunch less words. It was the exact same fucking feeling.
Is it? But like, this is debates, man. Is it the same thing? Hearing your father give that one statement, and here we go comparing pain, versus I fucked your mama, fuck you, get over it, nigga, you're wasting your time, I'll fucking kill you if you ever put your hands on me. I don't know. I don't know how valuable hearing the truth really was in my case.
Right.
I don't know if, you know, they say you want people to tell you how they really feel. So I appreciate knowing how he really feels finally. But just with the anger and the pain that it caused, man, I think I may have wanted, I don't know. I don't know, man.
What you got to understand, man, it's like all that shit's valid. What you feel, You feel it's all valid. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you couldn't have said it better. Comparing pain, right? That shit is all relative, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and that's essentially what we've been doing for this past. I don't know how long it's been. We just been sharing and comparing.
yeah, but
we writing a book of pain.
but we've been speaking, right?
Yeah.
Which is doesn't happen enough. And that's the premise, right? Let's just talk. Let's get through it, you know. And hey, I'm down to have 1,000 more of these conversations if it's going to.
I told y'all we're gonna have a bunch of these because after we have this initial one, then I know I feel a desire to give us some direction now.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, we have this initial conversation. Okay, now it's kind of like writing a poem. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you start it and you don't know where you're going, but it takes the content that you develop to kind of give you a path in that story and in your writing to come to some type of conclusion. And here's the crazy part. I think because I'm a writer and because I'm obsessed with writing, with this, I want some type of direction or conclusion, but I know the end result is not going to be a place that I'm satisfied or happy with.
It's going to be a fluid conversation, right? That and fluid emotion, right? Probably more than the conversation is fluid emotion, because like the fucked up thing is the fluid emotion piece in you guys' case is probably going to be, like you said, different flows of or levels of anger, right? Depending on the day, depending on situation. Like, hey, I'm cool today, you know what I'm saying? But something may happen, something may spark you, and all of a sudden you infuriated, right?
In one of our first episodes, we talked about it, and like, why is it that anger is one of the emotions that the black man can most readily identify with?
Because that's what we see. like that shit is more prevalent, right? Anger is more prevalent in our communities. And this is gonna be fucked up when I say this out loud, but I would even go as far as saying anger is more prevalent than love.
Absolutely. I'm a motherfucking master with anger. I could juggle this pain. I could turn it in. I've turned it into money. You know what I'm saying? I've turned it into therapy. I've turned it into, I'm just now learning how to love, how to receive love, how to be happy, how to enjoy the moment of happiness and not embrace for the impact that comes when you're happy, that shatters your shit. We know how to manage pain and hurt so well. You know what I'm saying? We're taught to
learn behavior.
Subconsciously, we're taught how to juggle this shit.
Yep. So, and we're taught how to hide it, right?
Oh man,
like motherfucking Houdini.
Like that's the other piece. That's the other piece, right? We taught not to express it. So then what I was getting, you said earlier, you compartmentalize it, but it shows up. And the thing the challenge when you compartmentalize emotion is that means when it does show up, you don't really have control over it, right? Whereas if you address it, you can make the narrative. You can control what direction it's going to go, how those emotions are going, how you're going to express those emotions. When it's bottled up and something triggers you, you ain't gonna control that. You know what I'm saying?
That's what's scary.
But that's why I'm saying you have to. I'm not saying you, Chief, or you, Prentice, but we have to get to a place where that's what I was talking about with you, Prentice. We have to get to a place where that anger doesn't control us. Because that's what it is. And that may be an infinite place, right? I don't know if that's a destination, right? That could just be a journey, right? It's not like, hey, once I get here, then it will no longer control me. But what I am saying is we have to start going down that path. Wherever that's going to lead us, that's it. Because if not, like it's going to show up. And you're not going to be able to control it when it does, especially your ass. You know what I'm saying? So it's It's just what it is.
It's funny because I've had, I can two come to my head right now where like my anger has gotten the best of me. And both times he happened to be like in the nick of time, like to save the moment, to save me from going like over. Like, and it's crazy because I those two times I wasn't blackout mad, but like I know the anger was very clear and present danger. You know what I'm saying? Like it was right there. But yeah, we can go on and on about this, and we can come back to another time. But I think we gave the listeners a ton of shit to digest, and I don't know where we
And
go
reflect.
from here.
Like
But
that's in terms of, and I didn't mean to cut you off,
No.
but where we go from here is reflection, right? Like reflection, conversation. Again, we're not therapists. We can't. It's as much as we say that we having this conversation. I still want to give you answers, right?
Right.
I don't have the answers. You know what I'm saying? But that's just like I'm a problem solver, right? Like that's what I do.
it's
Like
the nature of men.
yeah. So it's like, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I have no idea. You know?
And then, like for me, I'm thinking of things I've tried to do to deal with it, and then I want to suggest it to you, but I'm like, that shit did not work for me. I don't want to give you no bad advice on how to deal with it because that shit did not work.
Yeah, but you know, but to each his own. That's what I'm saying. It's like we have to heal as a people, but we're not going to heal collectively. You know what I'm saying?
It sounds like
we have to heal individually.
It sounds like you was rolling into the final thought. I like the way that would have been a good one. So P, I'm gonna start with you though. Your final thoughts.
It's important to make sense of the pain and anger, neglect, sorrow, whatever you feel as a result of an absent father. It's important to I think at least compartmentalize it. If you're going to be angry, if you're going to be upset, I'm trying to figure out how to put it in a pocket. You know what I mean? So it does not dominate or consume too much of my life, given where it's at. It's important for us to try to deal with it. We can, and in this conversation, one thing I'm going to point out publicly is that you did very little talking, Chief, and I feel like you probably need to do the most talking. You probably need to have the most discussion about this amongst us as friends, at least the three of us, because you clearly have a bunch of shit, and I just watched you struggle through this whole shit the whole fucking time while saying a total of 25 fucking words through the whole podcast.
I don't deny that. I told you at some point, like I'm sitting here and I'm realizing that I haven't spoken about this much, and listening to y'all talk about it just fucking fills me with anger.
So you got to start having that conversation, bro. You got to.
What if, this is just a thought, and I know we kind of going off tangent. What if, potential new episode, we have a real therapist on here to talk to you about this?
So here's the honest truth. Like I'm really after this conversation, I'm really feeling like I should probably go talk to somebody just about that. If nothing less, about that particular issue. If nothing less,
is jumping them still on the table?
It's always on the table. OG got to be here.
I don't want him to be here, man. Your dad might not come back.
Your final thoughts, Bell.
My final thoughts is, man, if this episode, this is, in my opinion, one of probably the realest episodes we've had with like raw emotion. And this is just us being our authentic selves. And I just challenge everybody to tap into their authentic self. That's it. I just challenge you to do that, and whatever that is for you, because there's, like we talked about it earlier, we do way better with anger than we do with love, right? How do we start receiving more love? By getting rid of some of this pain, right? And allowing us to love again, and allowing us to love ourselves and forgive ourselves. That's why I asked both of you guys that question, if we've forgiven ourselves, because I think that's a burden too that we carry, you know, and it's a journey, right? Like healing is a journey. It's not a destination. That's my final thought.
Yeah. So I think for me, it would be one, recognizing it. Two, not being afraid to sit and expose the vulnerability. I think a lot of us are dealing with this shit and are just way too afraid to put it on the table and go, yeah, my dad got me fucked up in a way that is impacting my life. And I may or may not be unaware of it because I'm too afraid to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So although I didn't do much talking in this particular episode, I wasn't afraid to enter the conversation. That's a start. That's a step in the right direction.
That's a start.
You know what I'm saying? For sure. But I love y'all boys. And you see that, people? Black men sharing and spreading love. Bitch, I'm supposed to say I love me back.
I love you, Pete.
I ain't about to tell you I love you. I love you, bud.
Yo, so that's episode 2 of season 2 of All Black Men Need Therapy. Do us all a favor and hug a black man today.
Do it.
And tomorrow.
Do it.
We out.
Peace.
All right, y'all.
Yo, special announcement. So the fellas suggested I add this in at the end of the episode. We filmed this episode Sunday night, December 6th at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. 11 a.m. December 7th, I had my first therapy session wrapped around the conversation we had in this episode. So it's just to illustrate that I'm not afraid. We're not afraid, and therapy is okay. I realized after not participating as heavily as I should have in last night's episode that therapy was probably needed. So I had my first session this morning and it went well. And I'm very pleased to say that I'm gonna go back and continue this healing. So if I can do it, you can do it, I guess. That's the point I'm trying to make. Y'all be cool, y'all be cool. Hug a black man today and tomorrow, y'all. Peace.